you just brought up the unfinished obelisk in Egypt. Okay. That was by far the largest obelisk that they had ever created. Okay. More than double the size of the biggest one.
Right.
Meanwhile, in Easter Island, the largest moai ever that was being created, like 2 to 3 times bigger than any of the moai that are there, was being taken out of the host rock, just like in Egypt.
But that was volcanic rock.
Well, they're both hard, but both of them were being taken out of the host rock, and then everything stopped. Meanwhile, you go across the world to China. You go to a place called Yangshan Quarry in China, and they were in the middle of taking out the largest blocks in human history. Some of them weighed well over 1,000 tons. Meanwhile, you add one more, Baalbek, Lebanon.
Oh yeah.
And the quarries there, they were taking out the largest that they'd ever done, and they never made it out of the quarry. What you have in common with all of these locations from everywhere around the world is that the civilization was in the midst of creating the largest that they had ever created of these structures, which means that they're at the height of their civilization because they were taking on the biggest projects they'd ever done globally. Everyone was. And then all of a sudden the work stopped out of nowhere and they just vanished. That tells us a few things. It tells us, one, they probably were caught off guard somewhat, or they wouldn't be taking on massive projects right before they're about to be destroyed. And two, the scope of these events must have been so severe that most of them must have perished. And that whoever survived must have gone to places like these massive underground cities like Derinkuyu and Kaymakli. I'm not sure you're familiar with, but you're not. In southern Turkey are the largest underground cities in the world. Some of them go down like
I've heard
half
of
a mile to
Derinkuyu.
Yeah, it has a sister city called Kaymakli.
Okay.
The wild thing is that they built these cities to be so survivable without ever having to go to the surface that Kaymakli is 5.5 miles away from Derinkuyu, okay? 5.5 miles, that's a long way. And yet, at the bottom of Derinkuyu, all the way down the lowermost level, they found a tunnel, like a corridor that goes 5.5 miles all the way to Kaymakli. Like the people there that were trying to survive couldn't go to the surface. And they were like going to go visit another city with maybe relatives, and so they would have to travel underground. Wow. I'm not sure a lot of people don't know about that. And to this day, we have no idea who built those cities. There's things thrown around based on occupations of people at different times, but we still have no idea who built them. And the amount of levels of Derinkuyu is astounding. The amount of rock they would have had to remove. We've never even found any of the stuff they removed.
When did we discover Derinkuyu? Do you know?
Derinkuyu is in I think in the 1940s, and it was actually totally accidental. It's a funny story. There was a man that had his house was like an old city, and he had an apartment, and it was like a mud brick apartment, whatever, and he had chickens, and he couldn't figure out why his chickens kept disappearing. Okay. It's funny. That's the story. And so he's like, what is going on? Where are my chickens? And so one day he followed one of them and he saw it go through like a hole in the wall. And so he took down the hole and it opened up, and it turned out it was an entrance to the largest underground city in the world.
Jesus, could you imagine?
It was like we're in the basement
you
of
have
his
an
house.
underground city connected to the bottom of your house.
So
wow. I'll go to the top right one,
Yeah.
Steve, the Facebook one. So is this like a diagram of how deep it is?
Yes.
It's like an ant city. It's
Exactly.
It's like underneath an ant pile, you would see.
And that's just Derinkuyu. That's Kaymakli is just like that.
And it can fit thousands of folks.
Up to 20,000 per place. And it's not only just what it seems with just random shafts, it's actually an entire world. They had libraries, they had areas for animals, they had areas for sleeping, they had schools, they had air shafts to bring down air.
Right. I was going to say, like, how the hell do they have oxygen down there?
They had a type of air shaft that went on an angle.
Wow, is that really it?
Yeah.
Holy crap. It's all lit up and everything?
Well, they put lights in. I mean, they weren't
No, I
lights
know,
when they
obviously,
found it.
after they did that. But it's amazing that they actually went to this extent to, like, make it, like, inhabitable and, like, so you can show people.
So they carved these air shafts enormous distances to the top on an angle so that rainwater couldn't like flood them down there, and they would live. They would live for enormous amounts of time. And my theory that many other also support is that these were created solely because of the cyclical nature of these events and how these civilizations remembered their ancestors had been wiped out, and they built these entirely for their own survival.
So how would this survive a flood, though?
How would it flood? What do you mean?
How would you survive a flood if it's
Well,
underwater?
they have these giant circular stones that they just roll and seal them underground.
And it's watertight, even if there's like massive catastrophic flooding.
Yeah, have you seen the big round stones?
No.
Oh, they're amazing. So if you look up Derinkuyu and round door stones,
But then you're
check it
also
out.
cutting off the oxygen. So
No,
like,
they have air shafts.
so
they
like
have
snorkels.
They have air shafts that are cut up into high points, like high points that come out. There you go right there. So do the one the one that's next to it. But that gives you an idea of they would roll those across and seal everybody in.
And that would be watertight.
It's as watertight as they could. But here's the wild thing is, Danny, is that what if, based on how long these events went on, like the older Dryas into the younger Dryas had series of events that occurred for over 1,500 years.
Right.
The entire human story.
What is the older Dryas?
The older Dryas is the events that occurred right before the younger Dryas, and they're not
Before
often,
the younger Dryas.
Yeah, they're not often talked about. But the younger Dryas is more like 12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
The older Dryas is like 14,500 years ago. Not that much further, but they have direct connections to each other. If you're going to understand the younger Dryas, you can, unless you understand the older Dryas.
So my understanding is that the younger Dryas lasted for about 1,000 years.
And then the older Dryas is another 1,000. So if you combine the two, you get events, not all the time, but you get events, usually always on the front and on the front side and the back side, and then usually something in the middle. And so imagine our Earth going through catastrophic periods where certain parts of the Earth is like you can't even live there. Not everywhere, or life would all have died.
Right.
But certain parts of the Earth were just violent and difficult to even live in. Imagine them going down there. Imagine entire generations never seeing the sun, never even coming out. As far as we know, like the people that went down there and lived there, they may have never surfaced.
They would evolve into gray aliens with big eyes.
Something weird, like
white
mole
skin
people,
and
right?
no muscles on
No,
the body.
like they can't see, they're blind.
They would
and
develop telepathy.
Right. No, I know. So, but there you go. That's like some good analysis. You can look at some of these events to see that. That's
it's
not my
backwards. So
it's not my favorite graph, but
yeah, 10,000,
there's some different
12,000.
versions of it we can look at. But yeah. So we're talking about disasters that were enough to wipe out an entire global civilization, and then the survivors were the indigenous people, which is why they had no idea how to mimic and replicate what the ancestors did.